Hi, my name is Kathy Fosno, and this is Kat's Creative Corner. Thank you for stopping by for Tuesday's card. This is a card we're going to make today, a monochromatic thinking of you card or thoughts of you card, or whatever kind of greeting you want to put on it. We're going to be using soft suede as our main color. Let's get started. First, we're going to need a card base cut at 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5 1/2 to make a tent type card. Okay. Then we're going to need a piece of soft suede cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then a piece of watercolor paper cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4. Same as your soft suede, that's not a mistake. Okay. Now, for the watercolor paper, I'm using this watercolor paper. I bought it Michaels. It's cold press. It's 90 pound. The package I got here just cost, it was like a little over $3 for one package. You can also purchase Stampin' Up! Watercolor. However, Stampin' Up! Watercolor is a lot thicker. So for this method, I found the thinner sheet was a little bit better for me. Okay, so we're going to start by taping our piece of watercolor onto a hard surface. You can use cardboard. A lot of people like to save cardboard from their designer series paper, and they just cut that into pieces and use it for this kind of thing. And this is just to hold it down to help it from not getting too warped because of the water. Okay, then we're going to use our aqua painter. We want the bigger tipped aqua painter, and we're going to use the Stampin' Up! Refill for soft suede. I'm just going to put a couple dots in my little container. Now I'm going to wet the paper. I have water in my barrel that I've shown before, but in case you missed that video, there's water that goes into the little barrel here. You just unscrew the top and put water in the hole and then screw it back on. And I haven't found that they leak. I keep them with water in a container all the time and it doesn't leak. So okay, let's get some of our soft suede. And I want a lot of water, so I'm going to just swirl it around. Isn't that pretty? When I was in high school, I love brown. I have always loved browns and shades of browns. And I had a friend actually tell me, well, you sure do like dull colors. And I was so distressed by that. And so I was in home ec for like 5 years of school. And I took a class that we had to make a skirt and a top, and I made it in the brightest colors I could think of because I was just devastated that somebody said I like dull colors. Don't know why, I do like dull colors. So okay, we're going to set that aside to dry. You can use your heat tool if you want, but it looks prettier if you don't, unless you like the effect of the wind blowing on the water. So I've got another piece here of dried that's already dried. So I'm going to be using the Basic Butterflies flower, and we're going to use StazOn ink. And the reason we're using StazOn ink instead of our classic inks is because this doesn't blur when you get it wet. It stays, because we're still going to be doing some more watercoloring, so it stays where it's put. That's why it's called StazOn. And I'm going to put this a little to the right. And I stamped my flower. Okay. Set that aside. And then I'm going to take my aqua painter again. And I'm just going to carefully paint. And I'm going to put some little bit of water in there. to make it a little thinner. No, we still want it a little thicker. And we're just going to paint the whole flower, stems and flower and everything, in the soft suede. And you don't have to be too careful. It's a watercolor paint after all, so it doesn't have to be exact in the lines. It just adds to the effect. Okay, so you're going to go all the way around this flower, and I kind of like to get in where it's shaded in the picture. I like to get a little darker than the edges. It's not hard to do this upside down. Some cards it is, but this one's not too hard to do. I do it upside down so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, let's see if we can get a few more darker spots. Like in the center, the flower should be a little darker, I think. It's okay to be wet because we're going to let it dry. All right, now a little trick that I learned from the lady that I got this from, Sandy Alnook. This was her basic idea. Take a brush, just any old brush with a small tip, and just touch the very tips of your flower. And it will take out, this is bleach, and it will take out some of the color from that flower and just give it a really neat effect. So I'm doing that to all my flowers. You can see how it just takes out the color on the tips. Okay, so we're going to set that aside and set this picture aside and let it dry. And you guessed it, I have a picture that's already dry. Now we're going to take our gorgeous grunge. Oh, left it over here, hang on. Can't have everything in order, can I? So we're going to use our gorgeous grunge, and we're going to use the dots, and we're going to use the ink splotch. I just love the effect this makes. Okay, we're going to use the soft suede ink pad, and I just inked this, so it should be nice and juicy. And we're just going to do a few spots, just wherever you feel like it. So there's one. And then I've got the ink blot. And I'll put an ink spot there, maybe one up in the corner. It's just abstract. You don't have to have any rule about it. So that's done. And now we're going to take from our Watercolor Wishes kit. You can't get this set on its own. You have to purchase the Watercolor Wishes kit. But this is such a great stamp set. It's worth buying the kit just for the stamp set. But this way, you have your cards that you make and you have a stamp set to last. So I'm going to remove or use the Thoughts of You, or You're in My Thoughts. Got to figure out which one it is. We're going to put it on the block. Make sure it's straight. Okay. And then we're just going to put it to the side. You want to leave it not too close to the margin because we're going to be tearing that margin a little bit. Okay, so that card is done as far as the painting and the stamping goes. So we're going to take the tape off and do it gently. It comes off, but you do need to be gentle when you take it off so that you don't tear your paper too badly. This was painter's tape. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but that's what I used, was painter's tape to tape it down. So it does isn't quite as sticky as some tapes, so it does come up. Okay, and there's our piece all completed. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around so that I can do it a little bit easier. I'm going to tear off just a little bit on each side to make it have kind of a vintage look, like it's worn. And you tear it towards you because it makes it easier to tear. So they say. I don't know. I think it's just the way that people like to do it towards themselves. So one more side to go. We're going to be making this card in my stamp class this weekend. You won't be seeing this until next week. I'm actually doing this a little early. So, oops, I forgot the top. All right, now I'm going to take the soft suede and one of our sponges, and we're just going to do the edges all around just to give it that vintage look. And it's funny to me how different parts take on different shades of the same color. I mean, this looks a little darker around the edges than it does on the flower for sure with the water. Okay, so that's done. Now all we have to do is put it together. So we're going to take our fast fuse. We're going to use our fast fuse for the watercolor piece because it is a little warped, so we want it to hold on really good. Okay, I'm just learning how to use fast fuse still. So I think it goes this way. Well, maybe I'm out. Let's go with Snell adhesive. Okay. Get right on the corners so that it sticks really well on the sides. I just ran out of ink on that one, or on adhesive on that one. Never fails, you always run out when you're using it, right? Okay, so now we're going to stick that on our sheet of soft suede. And then we're going to take a piece of Sahara sand. It's our lace. And I'm just going to tie it into a knot. I think I want it to the left. I'm not real good at making bows, so I just like to tie it in a knot, and I think that gives it a rustic look anyway. And I'm going to trim it. You notice on my scissors I have a ribbon. That's because that's for ribbon only, so I don't forget. All right, so we're going to take our adhesive, and we're going to tape that. I tape a little bit on the ribbon too so that it sticks to the card bidder. All right. And just center it to your card base. And your card is done. Now you can, for interest, you could put an ink blot on the inside. I'm going to stamp it. Oops. I'm going to stamp it, but then because I don't want it too dark, I'm going to stamp it off, and then I'm just going to put a couple of ink blots inside. Just gives it a little interest. Okay, that's my card for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I'd love it if you'd visit my website. You can get a complete list of directions and a supply list if you go to my website. So thank you for coming by.